Hello and welcome to the channel. We are going to be doing a bit of a review for a piece of kit I've had for a little while now, and we're going to talk about this particular piece of kit and why it's particularly useful for Airsoft. Before we kick on with the review, just to say, if you guys like the video today, please hit that like button. If you want to see more of the content on the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification icon, and you will get told when we post new content. So, first off, we're going to talk about something, a piece of kit that's not really used a lot in Airsoft. Not many people use it, but it's something that might become more and more common as people actually see how useful it is. And we are talking today about the FLIR Breach PTQ136 thermal imaging device. And that's this guy here. Basically, a little while ago, I basically got hold of some night vision and this guy here, this thermal imager, to basically use in Airsoft as a bit of a game changer stroke leveler of basically being able to deal with people who are using Gen 3 night vision and the like, and essentially leveling the playing field, as it were. So what we've got here is a compact monocular device that enables you to essentially acquire targets using thermal imaging. Now, it's essentially designed to be handheld, or you can mount it on a helmet with the handy mounting points that it's got on here, and it essentially will fit a number of mounts that you can basically acquire. And it is a really useful piece of kit. Now, just to let's go through some of the stats here about this piece of kit and essentially talk about what we've got here. So, first off, in terms of eye relief, it's a lot like many other pieces of night vision and similar. It has a 16mm eye relief on the monocle eyepiece here. It's got a kind of a field of view, because essentially we've got a little TV screen in there. Essentially, we have a field of view, a horizontal field of view of 24 degrees and a vertical field of view of 19. It has a bunch of internal memory, which is pretty handy, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. The other thing, in terms of sort of weight, this is 210 grams, pretty lightweight. You won't need a huge counterweight if you're putting in a helmet. It has a 9.1mm lens, and it has 1x optical magnification under the hood here, and basically it has a digital zoom as well. The sort of digital zoom here is 1 to 4 times digital zoom, so you kind of got that digital zoom element that's basically provided by the tool. The image processing inside here, the little sort of thing, uses FLIR's proprietary digital detail enhancement system, which gives you the thermal image view that you get from the device. In terms of sort of operating temperatures, this will operate down to about -20 degrees C, plus 50 degrees C. I've played with this in the cold and it does work, but I did have I don't think that specifically overheating problems, but I think it was shutting off because it really drained the battery very quickly in the cold. And that comes to the battery life. Battery life, according to the data sheet, is 90 minutes at 20 degrees C, and I've experienced much quicker battery drainage in cold temperatures. It takes one CR123A battery, which just pops in there, just one of them, and that's really quite cool. They're a very common battery type. You get rechargeables, you can get lithium batteries. It's really easy to get the batteries on this. It has in here a little quad VGA screen, 80 by 960 screen, and it has a 60 Hz refresh rate in there. So that's kind of the broad stats of the device. It's a really sort of compact little unit. As I say, it has various different mounting points for the helmet mount. It's got sort of 3 buttons here which are used to control the interface inside, and under this little bit here it has a USB-C port. Now the reason why it has this is not just to update firmware and stuff like that, but I've not actually so far been able to update a firmware on this. However, this is there so you can access that internal memory I mentioned. That internal memory allows you to store pictures that you take with the imager. So you can take pictures of what you're looking at, and this can also record video. Now in terms of pictures, it can take about 1,000 images on that internal memory space, and it can record 2.5 hours of video on that internal memory. Basically you just plug this a USB cable into here, pop it on a computer. It will mount as a disk. You don't have to have it powered on. It will just do it from the power of the USB, and you can access it just like a disk and get anything off the device through that. Pretty handy. Now what we're just going to do is go through a little bit of the manual, because it kind of goes into some detail about the features of the device and the kind of stuff you get. So just to have kind of breakdown of what you get when you buy this guy. You get the manual, you get a quick start guide, a little thank you, you get the unit obviously, but you get this. It's been just, this is what it comes in. It's a Pelican style hard case with a nice foam internals, and it only comes, when it comes, it actually comes with one of these slots ready with the device in, like so. This is filled in, but it's cut out. And I'm guessing the reason for this is, so if you have 2 of these images, you can pop 2 in. Or as this is my night vision, and my FLIR night vision, that I've just popped in there, and I can keep the 2 together. So this is really handy case, really handy. It does really sort of go a long way to keeping your kit protected when you can get this as a standard item. My night vision came with a soft case, for instance, and it was a MOLLE mountable soft case, which is quite useful because you can mount it on and carry stuff. But this is great. I can transport this equipment to a site protected in this hard case, and it's absolutely brilliant. So I'm just going to pop this to one side, so we get a bit more space. So whilst we talk about what's in the manual. Now, first off, why thermal? So thermal imaging is quite handy. I just showed you my night vision there. My night vision is great for playing games. You can see in low light conditions, you can pick out targets, you can shoot at them and so on. But there are times where night vision is not necessarily the best thing. First off, night vision only works at night. That unit, you can't sort of pull it out in the daytime and actually start looking at things because you'll damage the intensifier tubes. This guy, you can turn it on broad daylight, point it at something, and you can still see it. It actually operates both day and night. Now, the other side, the flip side to this is, and I'm going to bring this up to the camera here. This is a test shot that we have in the manual, and this is taken with night vision. As you can see, you've got a green blob, you've got what look like there's some trees or something like that in the picture. This is taken at the same place in night vision with the thermal. As you can see here, you can't make out really anything in the trees. There might be a sign of something just where my finger is, but it's really hard. Here you can see what you're looking at. It basically allows you to pick out things in conditions where you might not need to be able to see something normally, either with an image intensifier at night or with the Mark 1 human eyeball. So for instance, in an Airsoft game, you may be running through woodland, someone drops down some smoke, it's pretty dense. Someone drops some smoke down, it gets really, really, really dense and you can't see a thing. You whip out the sky, turn it on, and you'll be able to see the people moving through the smoke and the bushes because this can pick out the heat. You may have some dark corners where you can't get any IR light to illuminate from your night vision. The image intensifier is not picking up enough light. This can basically pick up those dark corners. The other thing about night vision is it has range, essentially, how far it can see based on how much light it can pull in. So, you know, a Gen 1 night vision maybe only be able to see maybe 50 meters to 100 meters depending on how good a quality it is. With Gen 2 Plus and Gen 3 you might be able to see further if the conditions are right. Now this can see much further because it can pick out the sort of images at a greater distance. It won't have the clarity, but it will certainly help spotting, and it is really a very good tool for spotting things. So this is basically really useful for that. So the manual has essentially a little bit of information in here, and then it talks about some of the accessories, and I'm just going to kind of run down some of these accessories that you have that can go with this. So first of the accessories described is essentially a little what they call a goggle kit number 2. Now the goggle kit number 2 is basically a headband for putting the night vision or the thermal imager on your head without a helmet or anything else. This guy here is the second one, which is essentially called a helmet mount number 4. This is a fitting that allows you to mount a night vision or thermal imager onto certain types of ballistic helmets. I don't have either of these and I have no need for either of these. Now, the next one on that list is the helmet mount number 183, and that's this guy here. This basically fits on any helmet with a vast shroud, sorry. For instance, on my OpsCore helmet, this can basically just fit in the OpsCore vast shroud, and I can pop the night vision on there, or I can pop the thermal imager on there. This is a rather very straightforward thing. It has a slider here, which is secured by this button. So what I can do is just pop this on like so. So I've got a it's a bit stiff, and then I just lock that in place, and that's the unit mounted. You see, and I can pop this on the helmet. I can move it up or down like so, and I can move it side to side using this to move it to the left or the right, depending on which eye you want it on. And effectively, this is how this unit can function and provide you the ability to see a helmet. That's one mount. That is the helmet mount number 183. Next one is the swing arm. I don't have this one, but it's used with certain types of US military headset and certain types of mounting systems that the US military use. That's not really applicable for us. What we also have here is the swing arm 172, which is this guy here. Very similar idea. Basically, it mounts on, I can never remember if this is the right way around or not. So, and it is also really stiff. This mount is super stiff on this guy. So I may have to try it on a couple of the mounts just so I can get it on. And so I may struggle with this. So there's one of these that actually goes on okay, which is this one here, and it locks into place. It's pretty sturdy, it's not going to come off. And then this guy fits on your kind of quintessential Wilcox mount, so that'll clip in like so. and then that will get mounted onto the helmet. So just to kind of show you, I've got my optical helmet here. I'm going to pop that in there, lock it in place, and as you can see, just move the eyepiece down. That will just fit on the helmet like so, and you can just basically see we've got the thermal imager there with my helmet. Of course, you can move this up and down, so the slider on the thing, so you get it into position, and you can sort of run around with that on your helmet, on your head, basically taking pot shots at people and getting and identifying people as you play. So let's just take that off, and then we'll get that out. It is a bit stiff sometimes to get this off, so I'm just going to have to kind of brute force this one off as I slide it off, so we can show the next piece. And the next one on here is the dual bridge 188, which is this guy here. Now this guy is essentially, comes with two different mounts, so it actually has the sort of the dovetail mount. I think that's called dovetail mount, I can never remember. Yeah, the dovetail adapter, but it also has a slide that basically goes into something like this as well. And this is basically the idea with this guy, is you can mount two units onto your, let's just check that's fastened in. You can mount two units onto here, or what the other approach I use, and I'll just pop this out just so you can see this. So this is my, I can basically put my night vision on here as well. Get that locked in, and I've got basically my night vision and my thermal imager on the same mount, and I can attach that to a helmet. I'm sorry, these are just not moving very well today. And then you can pop them up, so when you're not using them, pop one down, pop both down, run around with them like a pair of binoculars. And that's basically what this mount is used for. It's basically to run these essentially as a pair of binoculars with either two of these units, or as I've got here, a night vision and a thermal imager. And this is kind of one of the ways I run this, is as a 2-unit setup, whereby I use the night vision when I'm running around at night, and when I want to be able to see something that maybe I can't actually make out properly, I will pop this down and use that to see. So that's the bridge mount. So those are the kind of the mounting options you get with this, and it makes this very versatile. You could theoretically mount this to a weapon. There are sort of adapters and so on that you can have to be able to adapt this to a Picatinny rail, so you can essentially mount it onto a gun. If you are going to use this on a gun, what I would do is mount this in front of a scope, so that you are looking through your scope first and then looking through this. I don't really recommend you using a magnifying thing, because it might not work so well. But essentially that scope gives you a crosshair, because you do not get a crosshair in here. This is not this is a spotting device. It's not really a targeting device. So this kind of lays into one of the issues you have with thermal imaging. When you're using this guy here, this is night vision. When you're using this guy here, if you want to shoot something, you will have an IR laser on your gun, which you have zeroed in with your gun. And essentially, when you want to take a shot, you point the IR laser at the thing you can see through your night vision, essentially lighting that target up, and then you shoot. At that point, you, in theory, hit what you shoot, and you've basically got your kill, as it were. With a thermal imager, you don't have that ability. This device does not have that sort of spotting element, so you can actually then use that to target. So you are limited by that. So if you are going to use it with a weapon, it is literally going to be mounted in front of a a sight that's giving you a crosshair, so you can actually use that. Or you're going to use a specific thermal imager that is built into a rifle scope. So let's talk about some of the modes of operation for this device. And there are various modes, and I'm going to have some footage that's going to be sort of in the video, which I've recorded using this device, and I'm going to talk through it when I show it, but I'm going to only highlight a couple of the modes in that footage. But essentially, I'm going to go through the different modes that this guy can basically shoot in, essentially. So the first one of these is this top guy here. This top guy here is what they call the white hot mode, and it's basically a color palette that's basically selected from a menu in this guy here, where you can select how the heat is represented on the imager. So the white hot mode uses essentially the scale from black being cold through to white being hot, and colours things appropriately. So you've got a picture here of a man, and the warm parts of the man are basically bright white, and the black pants are colder. Next up, you have the black hot mode. This flips the palette around. White is cold, black is hot, and essentially you have the same picture. Now typically I either run black hot or white hot mode, and the image, the videos that I will have in here of the imager in use will be in these two modes, and I'm going to sort of focus on those. They kind of work better, I feel, than the other modes for most of the kind of things that we do with this. Then we have what they call a rainbow HC mode. This is where you start with a sort of an RGB type color palette, with blue being the cold and white being hot. As you can see by the image, you've got the white hot elements of the person's face, and essentially the different shades of color, and you've got the purple, which is the background, which is cold. Now, a thing to note about this mode is you can see the differences in colors more clearly. When you've got these modes, it's kind of black, and it's all black because it's shades of black here. You've got different color shades here, which gives you that kind of definition of what you're looking at. And to be fair, if you're looking at people, you want to basically spot someone, this is perfectly fine. If you want to basically see a good place to sort of spot a high temperature element in, say, a TV or a computer, then maybe this mode is the better option. Then we have some other modes, which again all have their kind of uses. Now we have essentially this guy here, which is the iron bow mode. Again, it's a coloured shaded palette. You've got a yellow's more the hot end, with the reds in the middle, and the blue is cold, and the white is again hot. Then we have this what we call sepia mode, which is using a yellow palette. Now this is actually interesting. I hadn't actually realised this until just now, and I might actually start using this a little bit more when I'm using in concert with the night vision. When I'm using the night vision, I'm using I typically use the white hot or the black hot mode, and the screen is quite bright, a lot brighter than the night vision is, because the night vision is green. And I'm having just, as I'm kind of looking at this mode, whilst I'm sort of talking here, I'm just seeing this is actually a mode that will work well with night vision when you're dual tubing it, essentially. Arctic changes the color palette again, adding a few colors in the middle, which sort of the just below medium end of color range is sort of blacks and blues and so on. And then we have this what we call outdoor alert mode. Outdoor alert mode is a kind of weird. I've tried using this and I can't get on with it at all. It's kind of a combination of an orange-yellow color palette, black and white mode, and one of the things I've noticed with this is colors fade in and out, and you can get it's to do with almost alerting you to things. So it might work for spotting, but I found with this anyway that I did not really get on with it. So those are the kind of color modes, and I say we'll have some video footage at the end and a couple of stills, which will kind of showcase a couple of these in actual real world. The other thing you can do with this guy is you can configure certain factors in how the image is presented. For instance, you can improve the sharpness of the image so you can get more detail. So there's a couple of pictures here, and for instance this one here with the sharpness, that one's kind of fuzzy. This one's actually pretty clear. You can make out quite a lot of the detail in the actual image. Then you've got things like the contrast, which gives you a very different view of the surroundings. So this is kind of fuzzy in places, but this becomes more, there's a greater definition there, and so on. And you can also use this smart scene thing to sort of adaptively tune and fine tune the image that you see based on the environment. So the other thing that comes with this as well is basically there are presets for all of these, and you can configure those yourself. So you can set up a default view, an outdoor view, an indoor view with these presets, so you can have different settings to sort of tweak the contrast, the sharpness, depending on what environment you are in. It's inside here. And essentially, you know, the other things in here, you've got things like little bits for, you know, managing the recordings that are on here, and so on. And then you've got in the manual here, it talks about the various elements of the display, what you've got in here. So you've got indicators of the type of mode you're in, and basically you've got this white hot indicator, which will tell you the mode. You've got your video and an image counter, so how many shots you've taken. You've got your zoom scale, you've got your battery indicator, and you've also got in here as well a compass, so it can tell you which direction you are looking, which is actually kind of handy. So it's pretty useful. It doesn't tell you exactly, you know, it doesn't have a GPS and tells you the, you know, coordinates, but it'll tell you which way you're looking. It's also got an inclinometer, which tells you your angle of attack. So what you're looking down at something, you're looking up at something. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much the manual here. So there we have it. There's basically kind of a bit of a rundown on this device. What we're going to do next is I'm going to sort of cut away to some footage of the device in action, and then we will finish up with some final thoughts. So here we are looking at some footage from the thermal imager. We're actually outside my apartment, looking down here at some ducks on the river, or some geese or whatever. You can just see there. This is in the black hot mode. As you can see, the detail that you're seeing is the dark spots in the distance of some buildings, and the heat coming through their windows. And you've got the tree, the foliage. You've got some light fittings down there that are basically blaring out. We can just sort of spot quite a bit there in the actual footage of, you know, the area that I'm sort of scanning around. And this is just another shot close to the apartment. As you can see, there's actually a car there that had a hot bonnet because it had essentially recently arrived. So that's the kind of black spot there. Then you've got other vehicles that are not hot because they've been there a while in the cold and they've cooled down. And there we've even got manholes. One of the manhole covers is warm because of the heat from the sewers, and the other one's cold. It's quite cool. And you've got those dark splodges there on the wall, which again are some lights. So it's pretty pretty good definition. You can spot some very warm bits. Now here we've got some in white top mode. You see a person and a car, and just the heat, and you know, just see that the definition, that person stood there being sort of spied on. And then back to the car that we were just looking at, that was black hot because it was warm. And again, we've got that white spot, and you can see the trees and everything else, the foliage, the lights, and the detail there is pretty good. And then we're back to the front of the apartment again, and we're just looking around down by the river again. You see the benches, you can see the ducks and the geese and the water there, and then you can look at the apartments and you see the heat emanating from them. It is quite an interesting view here. And again, if we're looking into the distance there, we can see the buildings and the heat differential on the river. This is in the rainbow mode. As you can see, it's the same shot of the car. You've got the heat from the engine block there, and the lights, and the cold of the cold vehicles and the ground, and even the buildings in the background. So you've got quite a good colouring there of all of the surroundings. So this was taken at a milsim, and you can just see there in the foreground we've got a burning tank, and then we've got people in the windows, and that's pretty cool. So we had our footage of the FLIR breach in action, and just to kind of wrap up with some final thoughts and a bit of information about pricing and how much this guy cost. So final thoughts really are, this is a great tool. I've used this in a couple of milsims and a little bit of kind of skirmish play, and I found it pretty useful. We were at a recent milsim, and it was actually really useful for spotting people in buildings and in the woodland that we could not see with the night vision. When it's just beyond that sort of visual range of the night vision, we were able to sort of spot people before they came into, oh, we can shoot them now range, or we can see them so we can shoot them now range. So it was pretty useful in that respect. We used it as a spotting device. It wasn't used on the helmet. It was essentially used as a spotting device by one of the team, who just sort of, you know, had that there so you can see what's what. So it was pretty useful. I say it's really a great thing to have in the sort of back pocket as an equalizer for people who maybe can see a little bit further than you. Say they've got Gen 3 night vision, so you can see them coming a little bit sooner. But also in sort of daylight conditions, you can see people that might be in dense woodland that you wouldn't be able to see with the naked eye. That makes for really useful play, and is a great sort of equalizer on that front. The other thing it's really good for is in those kind of smoky conditions when you've dropped down essentially screening smoke and you can't see a thing. This guy can see straight through it, and that's one of the beauties of it. So it is a really cool tool, and it's definitely something that's going to get a lot of use, and it's essentially going to be, it's going to pay for itself eventually. So in terms of how much this costs, this is basically where we're going to run into just how much the value of this is. So this device cost £2,350. So it was not cheap. In fact, it's a good chunk of money. Now, when I basically went out and bought this, I bought the night vision at the same time, and that was another big chunk of cash. I could have bought, for what I paid for the entire setup, a pair of binoculars night vision, but I went for this kind of, I want to have a flexible platform. Use the night vision and use this. So it definitely is not a cheap piece of kit. So it was £2,350, but it is no means the most expensive thermal imaging kit I've seen. There are other FLIR devices which run close to £7,000. But there are also FLIR devices that run in the £500 to £300 mark. Now, the thing about these cheaper devices is they don't necessarily have all the features of this, and this does have a good selection of features. Now, the other thing to note as well, there are other vendors. So FLIR are pretty much kind of the leader in thermal imaging kits. However, there are other people that produce thermal imaging equipment, such as Pulsar and the like. Now, there are things like the Pulsar thermal imaging scopes that will go on rifles. There are also some FLIR products that will go on rifles as well. But the ones that quite often you'll often see, and this is the only model that I think FLIR do which has this kind of setup for helmet mounting, is the FLIR Scout range. Now, the FLIR Scout range have a very different form factor, and they are designed as a handheld spotting device, and they range from a very sort of reasonable, £300, £400, £500 to £500 mark, through to, I think the most expensive one I can see here is about the £3,500 mark. So they can range to quite a wide set of potential pricing. But then likewise you have with some of the other devices, so a lot of the Pulsar ones are thousands of pounds as well. And most of those guys are essentially rifle scopes, so they are designed to go onto a gun. Now, there are phone-based devices, so there are different phone-based thermal imagers which you just plug into your phone, and they use an app on your phone to do all the processing, and then they have a special camera essentially to actually capture the image. The thing about the phone-based ones is, to be fair, you don't want to be running around an airsoft field with your phone out because it's going to get broke. So this is for instance, this one is a device that's designed for commercial, law enforcement, and potentially even military uses. And this also comes down to the fact that this is an ITAR restricted product as well. So you can't go exporting this out of the UK very easily. In fact, when I bought this, I had to sign a US Department of State export form that basically said if I'm going to take this out of the UK, I've actually got to ask for permission to do so and actually register the fact that I've actually acquired this. So, unlike the night vision that I've got, which is Gen 2 Plus, you don't have that with this. It is very much ITAR restricted. So yeah. So usefulness of the kit is very useful. Is it worth the money? I think it is. It's going to get a lot of use over the time that I'm going to have this. It's definitely going to be worth the money in the long run. Thermal imaging is going to play a part more and more, I think, in airsoft. I was in a milsim a couple of weeks ago before I recorded this. I was not the only person there with thermal imaging. In fact, when I posted something to Twitter to Instagram after the event, one of the people that commented on my post actually said, "Oh, I had thermal too. It was great. I found it really useful." I know people who have been completely annihilated. They're running around with night vision, and someone who was using essentially this device, this unit, not mine, but essentially their own version, of this, used thermal to get the upper hand on those guys running night vision. And yeah, so it is pretty useful, and I've been on the receiving end of that as well. We were at a sort of milsim. The team was at a milsim earlier in the year, It was late at night. We were running a night op. We were on night vision, and we were basically making our way through the woodland to the target that we were going to attack. We'd done a very good job of getting through that woodland quietly, getting into position to attack, and then we got attacked ourselves. Now, it turns out we thought we'd made a mistake, but we actually turns out that we had actually been seen coming, because one of the guys that we were going against had thermal imaging as well themselves, and they spotted us coming through the woodland before even we saw the target, and before they even their night vision users saw where we were. So effectively, it is a great tool to actually allow you to spot things that you might not necessarily be able to see. So with that, kind of wrap things up. At the end of the day, it's the FLIR breach, PTQ136 thermal imaging monocle. It is a great little device, has a potential to be a game changer in Airsoft, in various sort of situations. It does have its limitations, but if you know those limitations up front and know how to work around them, it can be a very valuable tool. So yeah, it is a really useful piece of kit. So with that, thank you all for watching. If you would like to know more about this product, I'm going to put some links in the description of the video to the FLIR website and the particular product in question. I'll also point to a couple of other products that are in the thermal imaging space. I've not used them, but they will serve as a good sort of point for you to maybe look at if you are interested, to maybe see what the technologies are all about. And with that, thanks for watching. If you liked the video today, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching. See you guys next time. Goodbye.